Warning, you have just entered the Boldcast, aiming at creating your best self. The Boldcast is hosted by David Kelly, and Hristo Penchev is likely for you. Live your boldest life.
All right, Hristo, welcome to the Boldcast, the first installment. How's it feel to finally get this thing going?
It feels really good, to be fair, especially since the many technical difficulties we've been through since we arrived at this point. So I'm actually very proud of us, you know?
That's putting it mildly, to be honest. I feel like anytime I'm getting something started for the first time, it's just, you always assume, oh, it's going to go great. You know, it's just going to go like this, and then I'm going to do that, and then it's going to work. Doesn't ever happen that way, right?
Honestly, it never happens like that. And to be fair, I think we both have so much experience in the different sides of life that we should know better. But I think we did the mistake to have positive expectations this time. But, you know, the most important thing is that, you know, we've been through all the obstacles and now we're ready to roll, finally.
Yeah, I started doing meditation recently, and I've been following on this app called Waking Up. It's by Sam Harris. I'm not even trying to plug it, but I definitely recommend it for people. It's a really good app. But, you know, he was talking about meditation, and, you know, he was explaining it's kind of like learning a sport, or, you know, and I equate this to anything, you know, whether you're like surfing or skateboarding or whatever. The first couple times you go to, you know, he used the example of surfing, to get up on the board, you fall every time, right? You just keep falling and falling and falling and falling and falling. And you have to like get over that hump before you can even try to actually surf, right? To do what you're intending to do. You have to like mess up so many times that it just becomes, your body becomes trained to do that. You know, it becomes accustomed to how it feels to stand up on the board and stuff like that. Now, I've never surfed, but I think that's a great analogy for starting anything, because, you know, with this podcast, like, I came into it and I'm like, all right, we're just going to do it this way, and then it's going to work that way, and then we're going to release it. But that's never the case. It's never the case, and I should have expected that. But I'm glad we're here, and I'm glad we're rolling with this now, because I've been dying to do this for so long, man.
Yeah, same here. You know, you and I have been developing this idea. We have been discussing it for months now. So it's so, I would say, even relieving that we're finally in a position to execute something that we're both so passionate about, and something that we've wanted to do for such a long period of time. So it's just good to be in this position, you know?
Amen.
But yeah, to refer back to your point, I think this concept, the one that you've mentioned, is something that can be actually applied to every single aspect of a person's life, you know? Nowadays, people are so concentrated on starting something just for the sake of reaching the final point and the final result. But what most of the people nowadays don't really realize is the fact that you are meant to go through the tough times to get to the actual results. And this sounds so banal, I know.
Yeah.
You know, this is something that for some people would sound so obvious. But the matter of the fact is that it sounds good as a piece of information, but it's so difficult to actually implement it in practice, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that is where, you know, we live in no, I don't even say culture, because culture is like such a global thing now. I mean, you're from Bulgaria, you live there in the UK and stuff like that, and I'm in America, but everything you're talking about is so relevant to both societies and everything, because we live in a global integrated culture now. And you know what I was going to say is, our culture is so tied to results. Like, and if you think about this, we're coached from a young age. Exactly what perfect example of this is school, at least in America. It's all about grades. It's not actually about what you learn, because if you think about it like this, you can learn something and memorize it, and you will forget it after you take the test. There's actually something that's called the I think it's called the forgetting curve, as funny as that's called. Within like 24 hours of learning something, you've already forgotten like nearly half of it. By a week's time, you've forgotten 90% of it. So you only walk away with like 10% of it. So, you know, the whole school system and how it's set up to memorize things and then spit them out for a test, forget them, learn new stuff, spit it out for the test, forget it, and then when you progress on, it's done. Like, you don't remember most of that stuff. The way you actually like remember things and actually implement things is by learning them and directly applying them in your life. And that's just my opinion, because that's my experience, and anybody else I talk to that's actually like a successful person pretty much says the same thing. You know,
exactly. You know, and a person that, you know, had a great role in the development of my professional career once said that one of the biggest mistakes that people do nowadays is the fact that they conflate the terms of knowledge and intelligence.
Yes.
And to prove your point, he was explaining the fact that schools and the educational system in general, they're trying to put knowledge and facts in your brain, but they don't teach you how to think and how to act, right? Yeah. Which I think is the aspect of our personalities that we should mostly concentrate on, you know? Because knowledge is important, don't get me wrong, it's important to have knowledge that you can base your decisions on. But at the same time, the concept of your thought of your thought development should always be in terms of how to utilize the information you have and to put it to your benefit through actions. So I completely agree, you know, and I think that's actually one of the main points of what we do with this podcast too, that we kind of want to bring awareness to the aspect of using your individual characteristics and using your unique way of thinking and perceiving the world around you, and use it to your benefit in the process of developing yourself.
That's such an excellent point, Hristo. I couldn't agree more. You know, I think that the thing that school, here's the way I'd explain that. I remember seeing, I think his name is Sir Ken Robinson or something like that. Robinson. He wrote a really good book called The Element, which I highly recommend everybody read. Basically the book's about, you know, finding your own strengths and weaknesses and, you know, doubling down on those and, you know, being in your element in life, essentially. But, you know, I saw him give a TED Talk once, and he was talking about, you know, in America, and you have to give me your feedback on what it was like for you guys, because I don't know anything about the education system there. But, you know, I have a sister, right? And if you ask my mom or dad if my sister and I were exactly the same, they would laugh. We're not at all the same. And if you ask any parent about their kids, they're going to tell you that their kids are very differently. And they look at them like that, right? Well, the problem with education is it doesn't do that. It doesn't look at me and her differently. It assumes we're the same. We learn the same things. We're encouraged to pursue becoming great at math and science. At least in America, this is how it's been transitioned. Math and science are so much more important than anything else. But the problem with that is that while math and science, I'm very big on them personally, and I was good at them, the problem is they're not relevant outside of their application. So, for example, if you look up, I encourage everybody to do this, Google the benefits of learning an instrument. You will see that it improves your IQ score, it improves problem solving. I mean, there's like literally 20 things. Then Google the benefits of learning calculus. You will find none outside of where that is directly relevant, right? So when you're talking about education systems are trying to make us stronger, better people, smarter, whatever, I actually don't agree with that, because if they were trying to do that, everybody would learn how to play an instrument. Not just to play the instrument, but to actually improve upon your brain and train your brain and things like that. Math and science do train your brain in a very analytical way, but where are you training the creative aspects of your brain? Yeah. If you're not pursuing that yourself while you're in school and when you're younger and stuff like that, and unless you're innately more gifted in that way, I just don't think you're going to ever develop that part. So really what education systems in America have been doing are trying to take everybody and make them the same, and then society doesn't reward that. Like, society does not at all reward people who can stand in line and follow the rules. That might have been the case for like my parents' generation, and I do believe that because of the various things, but boy, in the economy we live in today, in the world we live in today, that's just not the case, man. You know, you have to be very, very good individually and very skilled. So I'm interested to hear what your experience is like with that.
I mean, I completely agree. You know, I think that uniqueness nowadays is something that is so neglected and so ignored by, I would say, you know, the bigger part of the society, but at the same time, it's such a significant part of it. And I think it's ridiculous that this whole issue and this whole problem is not recognized better than everyone around us. Because nowadays, as we've talked before, everyone is so concentrated on results, on progression, on achieving certain goals. But at the same time, children and people in general are taught to do absolutely the same thing, doing the same old procedure on and on, achieving the same results. And at the same time, these are just mutually exclusive concepts, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense at all. But to answer your question, it was the situation in terms of the educational process here was the absolute same. And I think that's the case with all over the world, in all fairness. Yeah. I think this is more of a generational problem rather than a vocation-based one.
That's a really good way of putting it.
You know? Because as you said, people now are concentrated in developing themselves in their specific comfort zones, in making sure that they're working on something that has proven successful track record of success, regardless of whether this success is actually relevant to their specific characteristics or not. And the problem, and I wouldn't say the problem, but something really, really sad is that some people don't trust themselves and their qualities enough to get out of this bubble, try to be themselves, try to empower their characteristics and achieve the results that are relevant to their specific profiles. And they decide to stay in that bubble, to follow the same patterns and formulas, just so that they're not judged by the society or the expectations of their families or whatever the case might be, which I'm pretty sure you'd agree it's completely sad and so sad.
You know, that it just goes back to, it's funny because I was just kind of, I want to be very clear, I'm not ragging on science or math at all. I'm ragging on the fact that they have taken such a precedent over other subjects and competencies and things like that. Like, you know, for example, I know you went to school for engineering, right?
Yeah. That's the case I was going to bring up as well. You know, I've studied engineering. I have a degree in civil and structural engineering, which is such a heavy science and maths based subject in general, right? This is something that I've studied for the best part of my life in general. You know, my family has been involved in this industry. I started studying specific subjects and topics from 8th grade. I continued this in the university, and I've been doing this for so long. And the thing is, as you said, it didn't prepare me for absolutely anything. You know, it has little to no value to my actual life. Regardless of whether we're talking that I didn't actually pursue this career path and I moved into another direction. But the thing is that it actually has, you know, developing yourself in these areas has no value to the development of your personality and your personal life. It has value only to your professional goals and development. Yeah. Which I don't think is a sustainable method, you know?
You know, I think, because I'm curious, because my dad was an engineer, but, you know, outside of that, I didn't go to engineering school or anything like that, although I took a lot of, like, higher level science and stuff classes, but I'm not, like, engineering is foreign to me. But, you know, to me, really, like, the best engineers, at least from what I can tell when I've learned from other people, are kind of artists, because you're creating, even like the science is the underlying like of how the stuff works, right? But if you're trying to like innovate something, you have to have an art form to that. And So if you're taking a bunch of people, again, I'm going to be very clear here. I'm not an engineer, and I don't know nearly as much about it as you do. That's why I want to talk to you about this. Like, don't you think that there's, and I don't know like how your training was with this, but I mean, to me, you want engineers that understand the math and the science and everything, of course, but you want them to be able to think outside the box, right? Because those are the people that are going to, like Elon Musk, for example, right? Like, that's the definition of somebody who, he understands the science and things like that, but he has enough creativity, more than enough creativity, to actually be able to create something unique. And the only way you move the world forward and progress things is by having people like that. And what happens is, like, I always think about things in terms of a distribution, right? You have a bell curve. You have the most people are in the middle. So in any one profession or any just society in general, you want as many people to be going towards the tails for creativity, the creativity scale. You have like ultimate creativity right here, and then you have like none right here. The more people you could push that way, the better society is going to be set up, because you're going to have more people that are innovating and doing things like that. I don't care if you're in science, in math, just different ways of looking at things. That's why sometimes people outside of the fields that we're talking about can look at things in those fields and go, hey, did you ever think about looking at it this way? And then it just clicks and they're like, whoa, I never saw it that way. There needs to be more of that, you know? And education just, man, it's one of my biggest things. That's one of my biggest gripes right now is they're taking, as I've said, they're taking everybody and they're trying to make them all squished in the middle of that creativity curve. Just follow the rules, stand in line, and then get your reward. But again, as I said, that's just not, you got to be bold, man. That's what the world rewards today. That's what we're calling this damn thing the Boldcast. Because the world rewards bold people, period.
I completely agree. And, I think, and I've always said that, the key to success, to everything that you want to achieve, regardless of its nature, it's always creativity. This is always the thing that gets you to the level that you want to be. Regardless if we're talking about engineering, music, science, medicine, all the successful people, all the successful figures that, that make difference in the world with their work, the main thing that they had more than all of their competitors or whatever the case might be was creativity. In the end of the day, information, knowledge, methods of doing things, they just should be your main, the main methods for you to use this knowledge and shape it in a way that it can actually make difference, right? So that's why I completely agree to your point in terms of education. I think the educational system is so concentrated on providing you with these big blocks of knowledge and details that you need creativity to use in order to put them in work and to create something significant, right? But no one really puts an aspect on that. So it's a very
it's
interesting situation.
It's something where, to me, the world, what we need always to be making in any society across any area, location, whatever, are problem solvers. So how do you solve problems? How do you develop solutions to problems? You have to think outside of the box. So if you're in an education system which literally teaches you how to think inside the box, the people that end up, this is what's so funny to me, and I'm a big Gary Vaynerchuk fan, and me and you have talked about him a lot.
Yeah.
But he was like a C student or whatever, and he kind of a rebel or whatever. And now it's funny because he's like the most successful person, from my understanding, from his like high school class. But he was like middle of the road towards the bottom of the road kind of person in terms of grades and stuff. So objectively, our school systems don't all they're supposed to be doing, or at least in America, they're supposed to be evaluating people and kind of, That's really what they're doing, to be honest. Like, it's sold that, like, oh, yeah, we're trying to make you smarter and this and that. It's really not what you're trying to do. They're trying to evaluate you and let you know where you stand in relation to other people so that you know, okay, I'm going to go to college or I'm going to go to, trade school or, I'm going to work at Wendy's, like, whatever it is. And, objectively, Gary Vaynerchuk, in a system that makes sense, should have been number one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's just obvious, but he was not. So if you're gonna sit here and, I think there's no way to combat that and be like, well, no, it's doing the right job because so you would expect like the top 5 students in your graduating class would be the most successful. But if you go and look at studies, that is not at all the case at all.
No.
It's not at all, because really what school rewards are people that I said before, the people that fit and stand in line very nicely. I have never done that. Ask my parents. I'm terrible at that. But guess what? I've also started my own business. I'm the director of marketing for a nonprofit. I have my own band that's sold music in 60 countries worldwide and built up a relatively large audience. I've gone as a tour manager to Europe. I'm not even trying to, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but it's objectively not right. And again, I was pretty good in school, but sure, there's some people that are the top of the class kind of thing that will do well. I don't doubt that at all. But to say that like because you came in last in your graduating rankings, well, then you're done, you're toast, you have no chance in life. Man, that's just not true. All of my friends that are entrepreneurs and business owners and musicians and stuff like that, the reasons why they're so good at what they do is because of the exact reasons why they weren't that great in school. So that should tell you that there's something not right about that, right?
Absolutely. But, and I think, don't get me wrong, I do believe the educational system is incredibly flawed, but I think the problem lies a bit more beneath that. And I think the educational system is just representing the tendencies of the society. Because, obviously educational system rewards more, academically evolved students. But at the same time, this is how society works as well. People are more impressed. People value more kids and children and graduates that graduated in certain subjects rather than others. For example, even with us, regardless of what we achieve, in the eyes of a standard member of society nowadays, would be just people who are involved in music and doing their own businesses. That's not something that they would value,
No.
For them, a successful person is someone that works in an office, 9 to 5, have a relatively big salary, a decent house that is bought on a pretty significant loan as well, 2 kids, a dog, and that's all, right? Regardless of what we achieve, we would never be successful for these people, and that's why for the educational system would never reward people like us as well. And again, I know this sounds pretentious. Dave and I are not here to brag about that and to try and to try to, show why we are successful while some people believe that we are not. But it's just how it works. It's just how the world operates nowadays. So, yeah.
And, you bring up a good point. Like, the point of this podcast is not for you or I to just sit here and, like, pat ourselves on the back. Like, first of all, I don't want anybody to sit here and think, like, and I'll speak for myself, that I'm some wildly successful person. I'm not right now. Like, I'm trying to walk that road and be successful. First of all, successful is a relative thing, right? Yeah. What it means to me and what it means to you could be very different things, and what it means to somebody else compared to you and I are all relative things. In my mind, this brings up a good point. I had a girl recently say to me, like, oh man, like, you're super successful, she was going on about, like, your band, you have your own company and this, that. I'm like, okay, maybe I do a bad job of presenting this because I'm not at all. Like, I just started the business within a year, okay? I live at home with my parents still. So for that to be said, like, I'm not wildly successful at all, you know, but I definitely have the approach that I believe that will allow me to walk that road. The problem is for somebody like me or you, because we're living a life where we're creating all these things for ourselves, it takes a long time or a longer time to get the rewards. And everybody that's ever started anything will tell you that. It takes years, man. Like, try decades, you know, like it takes a long time. And I made a post on Instagram about this recently because I see this happen every single year in the gym. Somebody will set a resolution at the beginning of the year and they'll come in and they don't hit it by January 15th and they get all upset. It's like, dude, I've been working my ass off fitness wise for like 10 years. Like, and I'm still not even close to where I want to be. Am I better than what I was? Of course. Yeah. Same with vocals. I've been doing that for like 10 years. Like, people just don't appreciate that. It takes a long time, man. And you know, Hristo is he just published a book, and that's something we could talk about. But you know, how long and how frustrating, because I remember talking to you during that process, like, it takes a long time from the time where you agreed to, you know, you got the deal to write it, and then to write it, and then revise it, and then send it to the publisher, and they edit it, and then you get it back, and you do it again, and then to get it published, man, like, how, it's such a long period of time, right?
Jesus, it took more than 2 years, I would say. And keep in mind that we're talking about 2 years where I spent every single hour in the day working on that. So, you know, it was very intense process, and it still took this incredible amount of time. And it's just, you know, and that's why it's so frustrating for me, because obviously some people knew what I was working on behind the scenes before everything was announced. And they would be like, oh, did you finish it already? When it's going out, you know, when it's going to, when I will be able to buy it or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yep.
It doesn't work like that. You know, it takes incredible amount of time. And the most frustrating thing is that people who are not really used to this sort of routine and mental discipline to achieving this sort of results, they just don't get it. Yeah. And they don't have the patience. And I think the main aspect, the main part of what we do and that we want to bring awareness to is that if you want to achieve certain results, your main goal should be to commit to the process and gain enjoyment of being involved into the said process, rather than trying to do whatever you're doing just for the sake of the final results, right? So
I could not agree more.
And you know, this is an example that I constantly repeat. You know about it as well. And you know Johnny of Nothing More, obviously.
Oh yeah,
about him.
I hung out with him in Switzerland a little bit.
Yeah.
Which
amazing
sounds funny to say, but I love that dude. He's awesome.
Amazing personality, and when I met him, you know, he was explaining how he and his band spent 13 years playing small bars in front of 15 to 20 people while they are trying to establish proper lives before, you know, in the end of year 14 of their career, they got noticed by a label, they were signed to a label, and additionally they were nominated for 3 Grammys. And this is the perfect example that I'm always giving when it comes to this sort of thing. It takes time. And I'm saying that because, you know, from a personal perspective, I meet artists, I meet professionals, and every other sort of people, really, during my everyday life. And I'm seeing people who want to achieve everything here and now. You know?
I completely agree.
If they don't do it, they start blaming the circumstances. They start blaming the variables or whatever the case might be. Yeah. Which is not the right way to do whatever.
I'm so glad you just brought up Nothing More, because so, you know, for people that are listening to this and don't necessarily listen to the kind of music that you and I are talking about, Nothing More is a really big band. I mean, they're a huge rock band they're one of the biggest bands in the world right now, I would say, that are
first rock band to get 3 Grammy nominations in 1 year.
That's amazing. That's incredible. So that just kind of, so people can understand, like, they're a huge deal, right? So, funny story, like I said, I was hanging out with them in Switzerland. So Galactic Empire was playing this, I think it was called Rock the Ring Fest or something. It was like right outside of Zurich. And so they were really the only other band that I knew of that was on that festival. So, after they were done playing, both bands for some reason played like really early in the day. I don't know why, but we were hanging out with them and drinking with them for a little while. And dude, I think about, like when you're just like laying in bed and you're like, man, why did I say that? You know how you do that? This was maybe one of the worst things I've ever done. I mean, it's not that I said anything bad. It's just I immediately wanted to eat my words. I was like talking to their bass player and I'm like, man, you guys kind of just like blew up out of nowhere. he goes, oh, not really, man. And he starts telling me exactly the same story as you. He's like, yeah, for like 13 or 14 years, we played small bars. We did, small regional tours. And then, we kind of blew up out of nowhere, and he started laughing. And I'm like, oh, man, it's funny because that's so true, though. Like, every time I think that, I'm like, man, that band came out of nowhere. Then you find out that, like, a great example of this is, like, I Prevail, okay? I Prevail, guys, another band in the rock and metal area that's just kind of exploded. If you don't listen to rock or metal, but they're one of the bigger bands now. And, it's hilarious because those guys all were in other projects that weren't doing so hot, and then they came together, and they released a cover song, and the cover song blew up, kind of. It was a Taylor Swift song. And then they got signed, if I believe, or I might have the order of that wrong, but then, they got bigger from that. But they also, it's not like they just started playing music when they released that song. These guys were doing that for years in their own towns and stuff like that. So, like, my perception of that is always flawed when I look at myself and I'm like, man, I've been doing this for like 8 years. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, but then I'm like, man, you know what? Actually, that's not surprising to me because it just takes time. And, the same thing when I'm talking about music is the same thing applies to business. You also own a digital marketing company. I own one too. And, it's a frustrating process because we've talked many times about, meetings with clients and stuff like that, and they don't seem to grasp it, and it takes time, man. It's just, if you learn that, if you put in the hard work in the micro and you just willing to wake up every day and just bust your ass every single day in these things you want to be, successful in, but you have patience in the long term, you're going to get there. Like, whether it's changing your body, becoming a better vocalist, starting a $1 billion company, or, whatever it is, you're able to do it if you are relentlessly putting in the work day to day, but you have the vision and mindset to understand, okay, it's not going to happen overnight. Nothing ever happens overnight. It's going to take me a long time, but I'm willing to do it. Because I shared this quote the other day on Instagram and Snapchat and stuff. It was something to the extent of like, who cares if your dreams don't, your dreams and goals take a long time to achieve? What else are you going to do with that time anyway? Right? What else are you going to do?
So
you just want to give up because it's going to take a long time? All right, then give up, right? Go work and do that normal job that you didn't want to do in the first place when you could have been working towards your goal anyway. So I don't understand that. But, a lot of people don't see it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And the thing is, it's ridiculous. I think that's why we're here, because we want to bring awareness to every person who wants to achieve something significant in their lives, something that is unique and something that might not be that well perceived by all of the society around them, right? Because the mental aspect that we're facing with this whole process is just terrible sometimes. And that both you and I have talked about this before. It's so difficult when you're a result-oriented person, to keep working on something and to see that your expectations might not be met. But that's why I'm always saying to my clients or everyone that is interested in this sort of topics, just give yourself time.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes when you're rushed by the expectations of your family or the people around you or your friends, it's so hard to get lost into this thought process and start doubting yourself, start doubting your efforts, and constantly ask yourself whether you're doing the right thing. But sometimes just remember to give yourself time, trust yourself in the process as well, because that's important. Chances are that you're 26, 27, or 25, or whatever the case might be, you are still in the beginning stages of your life. And chances are that you've already accomplished more than most of the people around you.
Yeah. Yep.
And this is something that, again, we've discussed before as well, but just make sure that you're in a position to objectively assess your situation and, acknowledge when you're achieving something positive.
Yes.
Since I know for you and I, it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to actually think positively about something that we've achieved without getting lost into the whole cycle of thoughts. But just be proud of what you're doing. Don't forget to acknowledge the positive things that you're achieving and give yourself time. Don't feel pressured by nothing or no one as well, because there's no reason to do that. As Dave said, the most important thing is to do something that you're satisfied with, regardless of whether you're reaching the end point. The process matters. If you're doing something that you like, if you're doing something that you love, there's nothing that you should be regretting in the end of the day. And yes, it's important to earn money.
I don't know about
to
that.
Have to make a living or whatever the case might be. But that's another point. If you're concentrated on developing yourself as a personality and as a professional, you will get the opportunities that you deserve. It's just, I think that's a certain thing.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to me because for some reason people don't understand that money is just an exchange of value to a certain extent. Now, here's the thing. On one hand, I agree with what I just said. On the other hand, I don't. Because, you could take something like the music industry. The way that artists make money now is terrible, right? You and I both know this to a very high extent. Hristo owns a management company that manages my band. So we definitely know how that works. But, my point being that, most of the time, you're gonna be paid. The money you're gonna receive is for at least the value most of the time that you're putting into the world. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna get it right away though. Because for example, with a lot of artists, with the way it goes now, you talk about nothing more. Do you think they were making as much money 13 years ago as they're making today? Not even close.
Jesus, no.
But they were still nothing more. Those guys were still Johnny's an amazing vocalist. It's not like all of a sudden he just deserves to make more money now. Yeah. It's kind of like it compounds. He's getting rewarded for the time that he wasn't making a lot of money and now at the same time. And he deserves it because he was willing to put his head in there and stay down for a while. Same thing with owning a business. Your sacrifice up front. You don't take as much money out because you can't afford to, literally, at the initial stage. Or maybe, it depends if it's just you, like what it is with my marketing company right now. I have to take all of it out for my income. But the thing is, someday, I know because of some of the sacrifices I make with working with clients nowadays to get my feet wet, that's going to benefit me in the long run because I'm getting the experience and I'm willing to, charge a little less than what I think I'm worth just to get that experience and get that, get my feet wet. And guess what? Once you work with, I've already seen this been happening to me because I'm working with one person, they start telling somebody else and they think they're getting a good deal. And then they tell them, they're like, you should work with him and it's working well, blah, 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 blah. And then it just kind of, it kind of snowballs into each other, and it piles up over time, and there's just no there's no shortcut to that. I've learned that in my life, and it sucks, but there's just no way around it. I mean, but also, it goes back to what the thing. The money is a result, right? That's what we were talking about before. Process and result. The process of acquiring money is what you should like. I this morning went to meet with a new potential client. I love that. I love the proposal process. I love drawing it up and thinking creatively. How can I bring this client more business? How can we grow their name? How can we do that? I love that. I love that process. I love the proposal. So I'm going to win no matter what, right? And that shows in the proposal. Like when I was talking with the potential client, same example. When we're done here, I'm going to go work out and I'm going to train shoulders. All right. I've probably trained shoulders like hundreds of times in my life. If I walked out of the gym and I looked in the mirror and I was like, I'm not seeing these things grow at all. Like, after I leave the gym today, I'm just not going to do them anymore. That's just not how it works. It takes years, right? It takes a long time to get stronger and develop your physique and develop a business and to become a good musician. It takes a long time. And we live in such a, instant gratification society that nobody tells you that. Come out of school, get the job with the best money you can make, and save for your future. Put that money away. Like you were talking about, buy a house, get married, have kids, have a dog, and then retire. Yeah. You know what? If that works for other people, that's great. It does not work for me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Same here. And Dave and I have been discussing this for years now, I would say.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad about people who want that for their lives.
No. I wish I was them, to be honest.
Same. We've been
half
talking
kidding,
about
honestly.
this as well.
Yeah.
Honestly, there was some points that I wanted to be like that as well.
Me too.
I wanted to be simple.
Comes in phases, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to make everything to be more simplified, to take the route that everyone respects, that would be easier, more beneficial for you in one way or another,
Yeah.
But there are people like us who don't believe that's the life path for them as well.
Yes.
So, and back to your point, when I first established my business, I started working for free. I was just working for clients so I can actually develop myself, because what I was told when I was in university from a very successful person that I very much respect and I own a lot to, is the fact that you should develop yourself first. You should.
Yes.
The main concentration of your work should be your expertise, because people would never pay you for your company, for the services that you're providing, or regardless of what the case is. They will be paying for your expertise. They will be paying for your knowledge.
So on point.
For what you can offer them, right?
Yes.
So the first thing I wanted to reach with my professional development and with the company is to improve myself from every single perspective. And the fact that I wasn't requesting any money or any commissions was the fact that this was my investment in myself. And to this day, as you've said, to your point, again, there's no meeting with a client or interaction with a client that can finish in a negative manner.
No,
because even if you are not getting the job or the role, or regardless what the case is, it improves you. Yes. It makes you better. It perfects your craft, which is the main thing. And this is one of the very crucial concepts of my work, and that, and every artist that I represent knows that, and I'm repeating this everywhere, but this is sort of what I stand for, is the fact that you should develop yourself to the level where opportunities will come to you rather than the opposite.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
If you're not perfecting yourself, if you're not perfecting your expertise, you can't expect that other people would be interested in interacting with you. So
what you were just saying there brought two things into my head. The first one being that there's a really good book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and in the book, the author's talking about, I can't remember exactly the terms for this, but there's like, I'm gonna botch this, so look it up. But it's like primary and secondary success. Primary success is self-development, right? So that's like developing yourself. And secondary success is like the social aspect. It's being rewarded for your work or paid or, a Grammy in the case of Nothing More. Now, do you think that, here's what's so interesting for me to think about. If Nothing More, I'm just going to keep using that example. If Johnny as a vocalist didn't work on himself as a vocalist, do you think Nothing More would have ever had a chance to be nominated for 3 Grammys in a year? No.
Never.
No fucking way, man. But nobody's ever taught that. It's like, well, they should make more money every night. I can't even imagine for 13 years the shit they heard from their parents and their friends and all these people. And, we should try to get Johnny on one time on the podcast.
Hey.
I'd love to talk to him about that. But seriously, like, I can't even imagine that, right? And the second point to what you were just talking about, actually, I can't imagine that because I go through that constantly. I don't know why I just said that. But the second point is, what you were talking about with taking on clients for free and working for free and stuff like that. Most people would just look at you and go, what? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
The same people pay to go to college. Yeah. Me and you both went to college. But so like you paid to go to college and you paid to get that experience because what you were doing when you were working for free was what? You were gaining experience.
Yes.
That's what you're doing in college. That's what it's supposed to be done, right? You pay to go to college, and that's fine, and that's acceptable, that's normal. But the fact that you worked for free for a period of time, people would look down on that. I don't understand. There's a term in psychology called cognitive dissonance. That is a great example of it. There's nothing, you weren't paying them to let you get the experience. You just weren't collecting any revenue from them for your experience. So what? It's totally cool to spend $100,000 to go to college and come out and do that, but it's not cool to work for free and get that experience? Come on. I mean, it's basic logic, but it's just, for some reason, people don't think like that. It's honestly always fascinating to me how just, the dissonance in people's minds with that kind of thing.
It's ridiculous. And, just to get back to the example, I used to work for free for probably more than a year, and during that time, just to clarify, this is during my 3rd year in university, which was incredibly hectic. Most of my friends weren't able to take any jobs just because the educational process was very intense. Some of them did, and I was doing this for free, and people were questioning it. People were very judgmental about it. Yeah. And a few years later, some of the same people would come to me and be like, hey, how all of the progress you've achieved happened? Where is this coming from? How did you manage to write a book? How did you manage to appear on TV or whatever?
Oh,
and I'm like,
man.
This is just to prove your point, right?
Dude.
Because it's absolutely insane. And, the other bit is that the best thing about Nothing More, and we'll use them just because they're such a great example to work with.
I think it's a great example.
They didn't only perfected themselves in just one area that is relevant to their career. They were perfecting themselves in the studio with their stage presence. They were putting the time, the investment to make themselves a proper convertible product that has the full potential to meet every standard for success. And this is why they're where they are right now. And I think that's the main mental concept that should be approached. You should just understand that.
Yeah, it's like, dude, like I was telling you this the other day. Like I want to do a bodybuilding competition in September. So I'm saying that now because I want to commit myself to doing it. Now, if some tour comes up or something like that, then that stuff takes precedent over this, obviously. But, if I do that, when I do that, let's say that way, when I do that, all the years of bullshit, workouts where I'm like killing myself and eating a certain way and stuff like that, it's all gonna be the presentation that's on stage, and all people are gonna see is that, right?
Yeah.
Same thing as when I go to release music now. When we release this new music, like we're gonna release. So if you're hearing this, we're gonna release new. I'm gonna release new music in a couple weeks here, and I think, in my own opinion, it's such a step up, both in terms of overall quality of the product, and my own performance. But the thing is, a lot of people are going to hear that for the first time and go, "Oh, this is cool." Like, if they like it, they might be like, "Oh, this vocalist is really good," or maybe he sucks. Whatever you want to think about me, I don't care. But people will say, "Man, like I wish I could be like that." And then I immediately would send them a link. I should do this to something I recorded literally in this room maybe like 10 years ago with like a computer mic that sucked, and just how bad I was. I was awful. But I would have never gotten to where I am now, and I never will get to where I'm going without working at it consistently. And it's the same thing. And like, if I'm being honest here, when I look at the quality of the product in which we've made with our new album versus that of like a couple years ago, it's such a step up that like the things I wanted from that music before, I just wasn't ready for, if I'm being honest. Like, it's not that, and like a lot of, if there's any fans of Unparalleled Height that are listening to this, you're probably like, well, what the hell are you talking about? I thought, the stuff was good. I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. I think it was good music, but it wasn't great. I'm not saying that, and in my opinion, and I'll be completely honest, and I will always be straight up honest, and I will tell it like it is, I think the music that we made this time around is great. I believe that. And honestly, if you don't like it, I don't really care, to be honest. It's something I've come to really appreciate is I am never going to let external views of my art ever conflate what I think of it. I think it's great, and if I put this out and literally nobody likes it, I don't care. I don't care. Like at the end of the day, I do want people to like it, but I'm not going to let that affect how I feel about it. And it's just, even the mindset I have now about it, and just the quality of the product. It's like I'm now in a position. We're talking about like the primary and secondary success. I feel like I've accumulated enough primary success that I'm ready to reap the secondary success from it. And you're talking about like you have had much more secondary success in your life than I have. You've been on TV. You've given a TED Talk. You've released a book now. But you set yourself up to do those things.
Yeah.
And sometimes that takes longer. Like, you're doing a lot of those things, Hristo, most people are never going to accomplish in their life, ever. Okay. No, I'm not just saying that to like boost your ego, but that's, how many people get to appear on Bloomberg television? How many people get to give TED Talks? How many people release a book? And then on top of that, how many people do all three of those things? Virtually no one. And you're 25 years old and you've done that. And I'm patting you on the back because I know you won't do it for yourself, and I know you won't brag to other people about it. But seriously, think about it. How many people do that? Not many people. And the only reason you've been able to do that is because you focused on developing yourself. You focused on developing yourself in relation and understanding yourself. And doing things, you're getting rewards for things that other people won't get because you've done things that other people aren't willing to do. It's not a hard concept.
That's such a great point. I think that's the exactly sort of mentality that you should have when you're doing whatever.
Right.
And just to get back to your point, where you've mentioned that that you are creating is something that you just want to be satisfied with. That's the most important thing about it.
Yes.
That you are happy with it, right? And I think a very strong thought concept that I firmly believe in is that regardless of what you're doing in your life, it's important to be egoistical with it, in terms of doing whatever is close to your heart and do things that are relevant to yourself and that bring you satisfaction and happiness, because this is the only way that you can actually benefit all the people around you as well. Because you have to be true to yourself, and as you were saying, you have to be open and make sure that you're doing the things that are relevant to your own desires. And at the same time, again, you just need to commit to the process. You should enjoy it. You should strive for it, because this is what gives you the thrill that I believe you should be seeking in life.
Yes.
The thrill of approaching your goal, and the thrill of being out of your comfort zone, and achieving results.
Yeah.
And just reaching heights.
A perfect example of what you're talking about is just us with this podcast, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm not looking like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, I don't care if it gets successful. I know that it will become successful because of our and this is the first episode, so save this, bookmark it, and in 5 years or whatever, when it becomes successful, somebody come back and be like, yeah, I guess you're right. The only reason I'm confident in saying that, and I will look you in the eye and say that, is because you and I get it. We know what it takes to build anything, and we know that it takes a long time. And there's going to be a lot of times where you and I are messaging each other on Facebook, and we're like, man, like, it's just not going the way we want it to, and blah, 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 blah. But we're going to wake up and do it again anyway. So I know that. And the reason I say that is because you and I, the process and result thing, you and I love talking about stuff like this. We love talking to other people about stuff like this. So all we did, literally all we're doing, Hristo and I have conversations like this all the time. I put a mic here, a camera there, and I pressed record. That's it. That's literally it. That's it. And when we bring somebody else on to interview them, again, same thing. Just talking to people about this stuff. This is like how I talk with my friends my friends that are motivated the same way you and I are. And the reason I believe that this is important is because you and I are in the building stages of our lives. You and I talk about this all the time. The reason we want to start this podcast is because there's so many people that are already wildly successful that have podcasts and are talking about, having a bold mentality and all this different stuff. But they're not in the thick of it anymore. They're doing it from their really, lavish studio or something. Like, I'm in my parents' house in a room with a Blue Yeti microphone on a webcam mic. Like, I'm going through it right now. So if you're in the thick of it as well, like how me and you are, then you're going to be able to take a lot away from this. And we're also going to be taking a lot away from you. Part of, I think the best way to learn is to talk sometimes. Is to talk about things and teach other people. I mean, that's proven through science. Teaching other people is actually how to learn best. You learn the best that way. And it's not like I'm trying to teach other people stuff. I'm just trying to share. I'm trying to take my experience in my own life and what I'm going through currently and have gone through and share that, because that's the only way that we improve other people's lives. And that's when I feel, whether I'm doing music or business or anything, I'm taking what I understand and I'm trying to communicate it with other people. Just same way that music is representative of life, well, this podcast is representative of life too, because we're sharing what you and I have gone through and what we're going through currently, and we're trying to bring that into the world. And that's why I believe so strongly in doing this.
Well, I completely agree. I can guarantee that we will achieve that. And I think we'll be very successful, not because that we're aiming for it, but because we enjoy it.
Exactly.
We actually gain so much for this sort of conversations. And this might be the first time that we're recording a conversation between us, but it's definitely not the first time that we had a conversation of this sort before.
No, this has been going on for a year and a half.
pretty much. And we're doing this because this helps us. Because there are not that many people around us that understand our mentality, that understand what we are going through. And frankly, with the type of characters that we are, I think it's safe to say that we rarely find people that we can communicate with easily.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I think
yes.
I think that's safe to say, right? That
Yeah.
this applies to you too.
Yeah.
And
I
for
mean,
me
I'm a good
personally-
bullshitter,
Yeah.
but like having like real, like serious, in-depth conversation is rare. You know.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
And you know, for the type of personalities that we are, this helps a lot. And we do enjoy talking about important things for us, about helpful things for us. I don't think we are the small talk type of people in general.
No.
You know,
Not at all. I hate
I personally struggle so much in social situations where you need to talk about the weather and what you've done today and stuff like that. Again, I don't want to sound
Yeah.
pretentious.
No, I
but
get it, man. Yeah.
the type of mentality we have, the type of whole life outlook that we have, it's hard to find a proper person to communicate with.
Yeah.
And for us, that's something very, very important, you know?
Yeah.
And this is why we want to, this is another reason why I want to do this podcast as well, because we want to gather all of these people and give them, you know, an outlet for them to just be surrounded and listen to like-minded individuals. Because sometimes it's difficult to not have people that properly understand you
Yes.
around you.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
It's very difficult. It's very
Yes.
frustrating. So this is what we want to do. You know, we want to talk about important things. We want to have fun as well. You know, don't you think that we will be always talking about philosophy and deep topics like that? But these are just the things that brings us joy in terms of talking about. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, catch us on the next Boldcast number 2 when we're talking about the metaphysical nature of consciousness. No, seriously. Like, I 100% agree with you. Like, this is as much like therapeutic for me than it is anything.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, here's the thing. Like, what my long-term goal, or how I'll measure success with this, is not by how many listeners we get and stuff like that. It's going to be based on how many people we're actually impacting. And, you know, what I want to do long term is build a community of people that where they can come and communicate with each other about these kind of problems that we're talking about. Because that just doesn't exist, really, honestly. You know, so to kind of wrap things up here, I think that my ultimate goal, like I said, is to hopefully share my experience and let my experience help other people. And same with your experience, because you know, the cool thing is you and I, as similar as we are, nobody's exactly the same, and you have different things that, you know, you struggle with and are good at, and I have different things that I struggle with and I'm good at, and it makes an interesting, you know, dynamic. And I think throughout the other, you know, the upcoming episodes and the rest of the duration of this, we're gonna really get to see that, and I'm really excited for that. So I just want to thank everybody who tuned into this first episode ever. We tried our best. I don't know exactly how it went, but I'm excited to do more, and I'm really excited for the future of this and to watch, you know, our listener pool grow. And hopefully, the cool thing about having a podcast like this is we're probably going to come into contact with so many cool people. You know, so many people that are, whether they're listeners or guests or whatever. You know, I'm really excited for it. So, been a pleasure on this one, man.
It was amazing, you know, and you know, we want to be part of your journey, but, you know, we want you to be part of our journey as well.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
we're not here just to preach. We want to all to be, you know, part of one very strong community that we can, where every person can rely on the next one. Yeah. And we can just help each other, you know, and yeah.
Yeah, we are all, you know, last point, we're all seeking community in life. No matter how individualized you think you are, I consider myself pretty individualized. But to be honest with you, I've never felt as good as I did when I was in Europe with a bunch of other people that thought like me and had similar life goals to me. I felt as more alive than I've ever been in my life. And that's really important. And as Hristo mentioned throughout this, there's not a lot of people probably in your life that think the way that you do. And that's why we're here, to build the community. We might be the, like, leaders of this community, so to speak. But I wouldn't look at it like that. We're just the one facilitating the communication that'll take place. So, I look forward to this, and I look forward to doing many more of these because I've enjoyed the last hour a hell of a lot, man.
Same here. That's what we're here for.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to this one. We will be back next time. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Boldcast. You can support the show by leaving a review on whatever platform you listen on. Make sure to connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us on both at the Boldcast.